We are.
Okay. Hello and welcome everybody to this conversation between comic authors Rawand Issa and Malaka Gharib. We're so excited to be having this discussion about both of their graphic novels that came out last year. My name is Aya. I'm the co-founder of Maamoul Press, which is the publisher of Rawand's book, Inside the Giant Fish. And I'm just going to introduce both authors and their books, and then we can get started. So Rawand is a comics artist and writer from Lebanon whose work focuses on socio-economic issues and documenting real stories. She is the author of several comic books and zines, in addition to political cartoons and comics in various publications. And she's the author of Inside the Giant Fish, which was published in Arabic in 2019 and then in English in 2022. And Inside the Giant Fish is the personal and political story of a girl looking for her lost memories on a beach that no longer exists amid the effects of privatizing public beaches in the Rijiyeh town in Lebanon. And then we're also joined by Malaka Gharib, who is a journalist, cartoonist, and graphic novelist. By day, she works as a digital editor at NPR for Life Kit, and her comics and writing have been published in the LA Times, Catapult, Believer Magazine, and New Yorker. She's the author of I Was Their American Dream graphic memoir, published in 2019, about being a first-generation Filipino-Egyptian American. And then in 2022, she published It Won't Always Be Like This, which is the other book we're speaking about today. It Won't Always Be Like This is an intimate graphic memoir about an American girl growing up with her Egyptian father's new family, forging unexpected bonds and navigating adolescence in an unfamiliar country. So we're really excited about both authors being with us here today, talking about these books that are different, but also touch on similar themes of being an adolescent, navigating new areas of life. And so I think each author is going to do a little, read out a little bit of a little excerpt of each of their books, and then we're going to start the discussion and hopefully have a bit of a Q&A after. So I think Malaka is going to start.
Oh, sure. Or unless Rawand, do you want to start?
No, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll go. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Aya, and thank you to Maamoul Press and Ann Arbor Public Library for having us. This is wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go ahead and read chapter 6 of my book. All right, can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, chapter 6, The Egg. It's electronica. You like it? I think I'll stick to Khartoum. A lot of things changed over the next couple of years. Dad finally got a job in the Gulf as a manager at a hotel in Doha, Qatar. He kept the flat in Medina Nasr so we could have a place to stay in Egypt in the summer. I had a new baby brother named Ahmed. Selma and Dunya, now aged 7 and 6, could speak English. God, I thought I'd have to speak my crappy Arabic with you guys forever, but what's with the accent? We're going to an international school in Doha. All our teachers are British. And Hala started wearing a hijab. Wow. Mashallah, we're all so proud. So what do you think? Eh, Malaka? I know what Dad wanted me to say, but I thought it was great that Hala had become religious or whatever. But honestly, wearing a hijab, especially in Egypt, wasn't a big deal. It seemed like every Muslim woman of a certain age wore one. I just never thought Hala would be one of them. Mashallah, I guess. Meanwhile, Dad was fixated on me becoming more like a young lady. Malaka, take off your headphones. Oh, hey, Dad, what's up? Everything you do is about bringing attention to yourself. Why can't you just be normal like everyone else? It's so I can hear the music better. There's a lot of samples these DJs are using that are pretty interesting. I'll play it for you sometime. Wait, why would I want to be normal like everyone else? You're 17 now, a young woman. You should be polite, modest, tayyiba, nice. Ew, no. Dad, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm into subculture. Okay, so what? Doesn't mean you need to wear headphones the size of your head. Do you know what that means? It means I'm into stuff that isn't mainstream. Being tayyiba is like the antithesis of what I'm going for. Antithesis? Go see if Hala needs help with anything. Ugh, Andre. For the most part, I hated doing this chore, but I also found it kind of comforting. After being in Egypt for so many years, I knew exactly how to hang the clothes. I hung the big stuff first, flap, flap. I wrung out any extra water, squeeze. I hung pants upside down so they could dry better, and I hung underwear and bras under other clothes to hide them from view. Across the way, I saw someone about my age doing the same thing. Seeing her there made me think about my conversation with Dad. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was too obsessed with being cool. To anyone looking up at us from the street, we were just two girls hanging our family's clothes up to dry. Yo, Hala, what are you doing? I'm making halawa. It's just honey that I heated up, and when it cools, I roll it into a ball like this, and we can use it like wax. What? Okay, watch what I do, ya Malaka. She's putting it on her leg. Rip. See, so smooth. That's why I tell you shaving is bad. Your turn. Shanab, mustache or eyebrows? Yikes, both. Come over here. So tell me about your boyfriend. How do you know I have one? Ouch. Okay, you have to promise not to tell Dad. Taban, of course. Okay, put your tongue in your cheek like this. Okay, so his name, it helps me get to the hair better. Okay, his name is Michael and he's not Egyptian, he's American. Did you have a boyfriend too when you were in school? Taban, we wrote secret letters to each other. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I bet you got a lot of guys too and were popular. Jeez, too bad you ended up with Dad though. Ha ha, ouch. Wow, thanks, Hala. Do you want me to wax your arms too? What? Do people do that here? Yeah, it doesn't hurt too much. Want to try? Well, in America, people aren't bothered so much with arm hair. Let's leave it. So Michael, he's a year older and he got me into Pavement and Sonic Youth. And some of it is like this really experimental and shoegazy stuff. They're bands. It's music. Never mind. Is he Muslim? Damn, you don't want to hear how we met first? No, I'm not sure he has a religion. No religion? This is very bad. Well, a lot of people in the States are a lot of different religions. He just doesn't have one. So do you think you'll get married? Oh God, no, we're just having fun, you know? You must marry Muslim. Yeah, I know. Well, anyway, I'm just 17. I've got a lot of time to figure that out. I hope. And here she is waxing her armpits. Rip. How can you wait so long to let that hair grow out? Ouch. Doesn't it annoy you? Better than shaving. I can't watch this. What are you guys doing? I'm trying to draw, but Dunya keeps messing me up. Let ya, Selma. No. Dunya, leave Selma alone. Why don't we draw something in my notebook? What shall I draw? Draw me a girl. Now write your name. These are actual drawings that Dunya made when she was little, and I just put them into the book. Chatra ya Dunya. Good job. For the most part, the girls were a real drag. No, please don't touch my stuff. Oh man, you're gonna scratch my CDs. Look, they've already got your fingerprints on them. We're counting them for you. We're counting them for you. But the thing was, they were my sisters. And although they were little, I hope that they thought of me as their sister too. The worst fight that Dad and I ever got to happened this summer. Dunya, give it to me. No, it's mine. Best ya, Salma. Salma. Oh, Bess needs stop. Salma, ya hayawana, you animal. Salma, screech. Then my dad's getting out of the car. Traffic behind him, they're honking. Slam. Get out of the car. When I tell you to stop, you stop. Bess ya Magid. Bess, Dad, do you hear me? Stop it, Dad. She's just a kid. She has no idea what she's doing. Get back in the car. Oh, there's a scene here where my dad is pinching my sister Selma. And she says, ow, Bessie, Daddy. You need to know when to mind your own business. What are you trying to do? Prove a point to her? You're scaring her. She's just a kid. It's okay, Selma. You can sit down. Look at you. You're an American now. You want to make a big show, right? Showing Hala and the kids that they can stand up to their father, embarrass him, because that's what they do in America, right? Well, then maybe you shouldn't have had a fucking kid in the States. Then I'd be the perfect Egyptian daughter, just like you wanted. How dare you? You know what? Maybe I shouldn't come to Egypt anymore. I don't even know why I bother. Then don't come. Honk, honk. I decided to give Dad the silent treatment for the rest of the summer. Can someone please pass the cucumbers? I wanted to apologize for being disrespectful, but I had my point to make too. I wasn't standing up for Selma because I was trying to show off that I was American. I was just trying to do what was right. I still wasn't talking to Dad the next week as we headed on a road trip to El Arish. We hit the road just before dawn to beat the heat. Okay, ready to go. It's a 4-hour drive to Arish, so I hope everyone went pee. It was hard to believe that just 30 minutes outside of Cairo was the vastness of the Sahara Desert. Dad played the Quran on a cassette tape, like he always did on these road trips, and I watched the sun come up. I wondered to myself, when did the trips to Egypt get so hard? When I was a kid, I used to count down the days before I could be with Dad again. Now in my journals, I counted down to when I could return to the States. 2002-2003. Only 6 more weeks in Egypt. Can't wait to go home and hang out with my friends again. I get so tired of not being understood. I wanted a relationship with Dad like the ones I saw on TV. I wanted to confide in him and ask him for advice like DJ did with her dad, Danny Tanner. I wanted him to know about what was going on at school, who I was dating, about my zine, about my dreams to become a writer. My zine is called Sever, and it's all about music. I put them in Tower Records. I wanted us, when we fought, to talk things through and then hug it out like Will and Uncle Phil in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We were so far from that. I'm going to read the rest of this chapter. About 3 hours into the drive, the sea appeared on the horizon. Hala decided we should stop to take a break. I'm hungry. Me too. I'm sorry. There's supposed to be a British accent. I'm hungry. Me too. Breakfast is coming soon. Here, take a sandwich. I don't want it. I'm not hungry. I was terribly hungry and I did want it, but I wanted to make Dad feel bad. Okay, I guess. Now it was my turn to feel hurt. I didn't want to keep playing this game with him. I just wanted things to go back to normal. I thought back to the time when I got upset at Dad over the charade of taking family photos. Hala had ended up having to intervene. I wish I spoke better English because I want you to understand. Your dad, he keeps photos of you next to the bed, and sometimes I see him looking at them. My daughter, when he thinks about you and Amrika, he cries. It's true. I wish I never left you. That's why we bring you here in the summer, to be with us. They were trying, and I guess I should try too. I changed my mind. I'll have a sandwich. Gibna cheddar will a bit gibna beda. Cheddar or feta? Cheddar. Boiled egg too? Yeah. He's feeding me the egg, and I'm happy and I smile at him. The end. Hope you like that.
Yeah. I guess I'm gonna jump in. Thank you, Malaka, for this. So my name is Rawand. I'm gonna share my screen and read the first chapter of my book. Can you see it? All is good? Okay, cool. So I just want to say that the book was translated from Arabic. It was originally written in Arabic and it was translated by Amy Shinyara. I want to say hi to her. So let me... Lebanon, the 90s. The first beach resort built in Jie faces our house. From then on, we were denied entry to the shore. None of the villagers objected to the ban. It was seen as normal. You're free to do what you want on your own land. At that time, people were drained by the War of Liberation in the south and were busy farming their lands so they could feed their families, while the rest of the country was rapidly thriving and developing. We, the farmers, were sidelined by the economic boom. Resort after resort, our public spaces were completely invaded as our shoreline shrank. Our families' usual outings to the beach were over. The Civil War ended here, and the cost of living shot up from there. There was no longer enough space for us to build our cane canopies on the shore. The young people from the area were preoccupied by their resorts and new lifestyle that came with them. Paying to swim, lounge beds on the beach, a bar, seafront restaurants. Who was all of this for? We, the inhabitants, couldn't afford this way of life. None of the young people from the area were opposed to it. For them, this change afforded them new work opportunities to support their families. The sea was no longer the place we were raised by. It became a source of hard labor. We went from being the children of the sea to being waiters at resorts. Some resort owners allowed the people from the area free access to the sea, as long as they didn't get too close to private property. Parents didn't allow their daughters to mix with people drinking alcohol on the beach, weirdos, listening to weird music, dancing half naked till the sun came up. Locals rejected the idea of the resort, viewing it as a bizarre and alien culture, rather than an entity that invaded public space. Just like that, our days by the sea became fewer and further in between, becoming monthly rather than almost daily occasions. The sea was so close, 2 steps away, really, but still unreachable. The way of life that came with the resorts infringed our personal liberties as well. By us, I mean the girls. Where are you going? My mother would tell us that if girls from the village were spotted alone at the beach, they were shamed. The sea is not ours anymore. The girls who went to the resorts, on the other hand, could wear whatever they wanted without anyone shaming them for anything. They saw her down by the sea in a swimsuit alone. It was our bodies, it was our bodies, the girls from the area, that were the shameful ones. Okay. The resorts didn't just invade our sea, they invaded our bodies as well. I was an obedient girl. I was stubborn. My mother would sometimes let me go to the beach while my aunts would report me to my father, encouraging him to hit me, so I would obey. I also wanted to be part of this forbidden space. As a way of standing my ground, my determination to go to the beach and resorts increased. I sunk into one of the resorts once. I wanted to try out the bar. I went in and sat. I had no idea what I was doing. It felt strange. Why were they sitting on uncomfortable chairs when they could be stretched out on the sand? I didn't feel like I belonged there, so I left 10 minutes later. All they left was one narrow spot. Not out of consideration for us, it just wasn't appealing enough for the investors. So the locals were all confined to it. The overcrowded created tension, which led to fights over just a place to sit. The people who lived close by started complaining, so the decision was made to close off the area entirely. Just like that, the last public beach disappeared. It wasn't long before the people reopened that beach, but this time they organized it so that the small space wouldn't crowd or let in more people than it could fit. They set up tables with parasols and chairs and had people reserve their spots and pay a small fee. Ontario, Canada, 2018. I always asked myself how these resorts took over the whole area and who was to blame. The locals? Most of them were farmers. The invasive development that had consumed most of the country, along with the ruling class's neglect of agriculture, meant that people had lost the ability to sustain themselves. Some sold their seaside properties and other rented lands to investors. But were they really to blame? I always felt that the 80s generation in Lebanon was raised on defeat. Our parents had lived through a series of wars, so they raised us to be grateful for the most basic of things, like having food on the table that day. We didn't need more than that, alhamdulillah. We were taught to put up with things rather than fight back. We kept our heads down and were grateful for the little we were given. The sea was stolen from us in full view, and no one put up a fight. I felt suffocated by how much we were expected to put up with, so I left. When my immigration request was granted, I packed all my belongings in 2 days. How did I fit my life and my family's life into 2 bags? I didn't carry much. The emotional baggage was more than enough. I didn't expect to feel so alienated. In Lebanon, we didn't have much, and I never felt like I belonged. It always felt like I was held hostage by the state. Work, 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 humiliation, humiliation, humiliation. I was a teacher. I gave a lot from the heart and was given nothing in return, not respect or appreciation or security. Nothing but a tiny salary that could barely cover a life defined by austerity. Despite this, I still felt alienated when I left and discovered that I did, in fact, belong to my memories, a child walking in the sand and breaking the waves. What is a daughter of the sea without the sea? Thank you.
Beautiful. It's really cool hearing it in your own voice.
Thank you. I mean, it was originally written in Arabic, so it's like kind of, I don't know, a little bit weird to read it in English as well.
I can't even imagine. I'd love to hear it in Arabic sometime too. So where should we begin our conversation?
I mean, I wanted to say that I really was invested in the small details that you showed us in your book. Like the story, like your kind of storytelling was all about the details. We know about the whole story from the little bits of things. I don't know, like this scene where you're hanging the clothes on the balcony. I mean, these kind of details are like when we're telling a story, maybe they're not, I don't know, they're not usually like we do not talk about those details more, but I think that they're really important, especially when it comes to like talking about like a country that is different from where you live in, because it puts the reader like specifically where you are, you know, that it's different. There's a balcony, I'm I don't know, hanging clothes, I have to help my stepmother. I really enjoyed these details and I was also touched by them. I think us in Lebanon and Egyptian culture, we don't have a lot of differences. It's almost the same. So I felt that I was reading a story of like my neighbor or something. And I was really touched by the intensity of the feelings. Like the story was told in a very playful way, and like the memories that you mentioned with your stepsisters and in Egypt, and before even the stepsisters came with Hala, they were very playful, but at the same time, there's a lot of intensity of what this child is going through, the change that she has to deal with. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. How did you, I don't know, how was it for you to write about these big feelings in such a playful and smooth way?
Wow, that's a high compliment. Thank you so much. It's a high compliment coming from another cartoonist, because when you think about like who you really care about the opinions of in the world of cartooning, it's other comic artists, like usually, right? So thank you for that. Thank you. That's very kind. I think for me, I've always, you know, there's a saying, it's like, I don't know who said this. I'm sure people who have MFAs like know, or maybe just regular people, but like when you're talking about something or you're talking about a theme, like write it slant. So it just means like write about what you're trying to talk about, but write about it in like a different way, like use different details, use different anecdotes to sort of like illustrate your greater point. So I wanted to show, I guess like to answer your question, Like, how was I able to like talk about big feelings but make things so light? It's something that I do a lot in my first book, I Was Their American Dream, where I talk about like racism and microaggressions and all these like, and dealing with the fact that we're living in a white dominated world in the United States. And I guess I just sort of like playfully broach these very heavy topics with like games and conversations and like silly jokes and things like that. So I think I do bring that in my second book. I don't know how I do it. I think that maybe it's my attitude and approach toward life, where it's like, I think that in general, as a person, I'm a very easygoing and amenable person. I don't have a lot of strong opinions, but there is like an undertone in a lot of my work of like anger, like, or resentment or frustration or alienation. And these are like, I guess, like, don't be fooled by the lightness you see above. There's a lot of things happening underneath. As for the fine details, I have to show you something. This is this is my my journal that I kept when I was in high school, and it has like, you know, I was writing about like the most mundane things that were happening in my life, and basically all the rich detail and like about like what I was doing on the day-to-day basis, doing the laundry, how I was doing the laundry, like conversations that I had with Hala, like they're all here. And this was my only friend for times when I was very lonely, when I was in Egypt. And I have kept a diary since I was a very, very young girl, 9 years old. And I basically just reread through all of my summer diaries from Egypt to basically get all this really fine detail in here. So that's the answer to your question, like conversations I've had. And even my dad, when I also, to make sure that I was getting really, really good detail too, I was re-interviewing my stepmom and my dad, and like trying to remember specific conversations or events that happened. And like, I would sort of fact check my memory with their memory. And I think that's how I was able to get some really specific things into the book. Yeah.
Talking about your memory and their memory, also something that I really liked in the story, that especially in the first chapter where we are still getting to know the characters, we see that the child is very, she's not comfortable, but the dad and Hala and I don't know, the grandmother, maybe they all have like happy smiles, and she's like, who is she? Yeah. So like, if you look at the pages, it's like, we can see that there's a garden and a sea and it's like colorful, but at the same time, the child is just not okay with all that. She's, you know, getting all of these new information that like, this is a new life that I have to deal with right now. And as if I feel like you kind of showed us the intense feelings and like helped us process them at the same time. Maybe how you process them, I don't know, but definitely a child living in the US coming to Egypt to a father that she haven't seen in a long time, to also find a stepmother. And I mean, this is not even easy for a grown-up, Yana. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I would love to hear about I would love to hear a little bit about more about your book, about what inspired this particular memory for you and why you wanted to draw it out into this book. I think the sea is a very big theme in my own books. Living in the Middle East, or the northern coast of Africa, where we had access to the Mediterranean, that was something that was a big recurring place that I went to, and it meant a lot to me. And clearly it's like meant a lot to you too. I'd love for you to talk about the inspiration behind your book, but also the protagonist, because it's interesting that this protagonist, as you were telling me yesterday in conversation, is not actually you, but sort of an amalgamation of you and your sister. So I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, so about the inspiration, I mean, I wrote the story when I was still in Lebanon, and
when was that? Because you're in Turkey now.
I started maybe thinking about the story, and like I did interviews with some of my family members also, and some people from Algeria, my hometown, and I kind of started this like organically without actually like I don't know, taking appointments with people and having a pencil or I don't know, like to record what they're saying. It kind of started from curiosity, because when I was growing up, I am younger from my sister, so she's talking about the 80s and the 90s. I am the next generation. I grew up in the 90s. So when I grew up, the sea was already taken. So I only experienced the sea when I was very young. I was a child, and it was already something like a dream. So even my memories are kind of vivid. And it was growing up, it was always frustrating for me that our house is literally 10 minutes away from the beach, but I can't access it. So it's like I can smell it and I can listen to the waves, but I cannot access it. And so I didn't really need a lot of inspiration, it was just the frustration all the time of why can't I access this? And the frustration of the approval of everyone of this, like, why aren't everyone angry? Like, this is not okay. So yeah, I think it was more of the frustration that made me want to talk about this, and loss, of course, because I was a child, there was a beach. Growing up, I lost a lot, and the whole hometown changed. So we're talking about not only geographically it changed, also the lifestyle of the people changed. So you have a kind of a collective memory that is being vanished, and the life of a whole hometown is changing. This is why I felt that if I only told my story, it wouldn't be enough, kind of like I have my own memories, I have my own stories with the beach, but I felt that there is a lot more than my own story, especially that this is something I share with a lot of people. So what I did is that I collected memories from different people and I just put them into one character. So the main story, which is that the woman is immigrating to Canada, is my sister's story. But the memories she talks about do not belong only to her. It's a collective memory. The book was kind of documentation, it's nonfiction. And yeah, I don't know. I wanted to show, because like if you look into the news, you will search a lot. If you look into the news, you will find a lot of news about this issue in Lebanon. And I think all over the Mediterranean also. This is not only happening in Lebanon, maybe all over the world also. But you will never hear the stories of the people, like, yeah, privatization of the beach, but what does that mean to the people who live on the beach? Where did they go? The people who had lives there, what happened to them? And yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people lost a lot, not only memories, but also like their whole identity kind of changed. They don't have home anymore, kind of. And also I wanted to, like, maybe more of inspiration didn't also came from frustration, but also I wanted to, because I have my sister, for example, she has 2 girls. My other sister has 2 girls. My brother has one boy. So my nieces and nephew, they know nothing about the beach. They do not know that their parents were raised by the beach. And I just wanted them to, I felt like I don't know, had this responsibility to just document this for them, to tell them about the roots, about our identity. Why are we like that? I don't know why we are so comfortable. For example, right now, I cannot live in a city where there's no beach. I need to see waves.
Yeah, I'm in Nashville and I'm landlocked. So the nearest beach is 7 hours away by car.
Oh.
But I think one of my favorite parts about your book too is that, like, when you talk about like the importance of the beach in people's psyches and people's culture and persona, it's actually through the frame of leisure and fun. And that is so beautiful. Like, all your memories, the protagonist's memories about the beach are about, like, picking jellyfish, or like going to swim at a shipwreck, or like sitting underneath the reed like huts, and watching other children as they play. Like, they're all like very much embedded in like a life of leisure and relaxation and fun, and like that juxtaposed with like really heavy topics like privatization and like removing of the culture. Like, it's people's right to enjoy themselves and enjoy the nature around them. And that is a very lovely message, a very important message in the age of rapid development and climate change, and having a relationship to nature around you. Here in the United States, I feel like that is something that feels really lost among like this generation. I don't know. I just think it has like a very like a human perspective, and it's lovely.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, talking about that, I don't know. It kind of feels like, I don't know, I don't want to be dramatic, but it's kind of feels like they trapped us, kind of. Trapped us away from the beach, trapped us away from public spaces like parks, for example, access to any forest or nature. So you kind of, this is what I mean about changing the lifestyle. And this is not something that is only, I don't know. I mean, this is a necessity. This is how the people used to, I mean, this is how we should live, you should have access to trees to do something. And like going back to these memories about the jellyfish and like the memories that the girl had in her childhood. And this was actually the hard part for me, because my memories was kind of vivid. I did not remember details. And maybe this is why I have kind of a someone who's saying the story, and the memories, I do not get too much into the details because I do not have details. All of the things that I wrote are from what I heard. My sister's memories, my brother, my neighbor. I interviewed an old man from my hometown that like he's some kind of a, like everyone respected. His memories, for example, I integrated into the chapter where I talk about the grandma. She's talking about the history of the town. I mean, yeah, these are so important because as I show in some chapter where the character is like, she is dealing with anxiety and depression after immigration, and she's like goes to a yoga class. All she thinks about are these memories. This is the only comfort space for her. And talking about that, I also like, this also really touched me while I was reading your book. I mean, I don't know, I get invested into the feelings of all the characters when I was reading. I feel that feelings, like they are kind of a character on its own in the book, because it's really shown in the characters. And I really love that. It's not only storytelling. You can see the changes of the feelings that each character are having, and they're all intense. They're not easy at all. For example, the chapter that you read, the fight with your father, that was not easy at all. I mean, he told you don't come anymore. I mean, okay, this is not easy, but like we kind of read it and you like had eggs after it. I mean, you know what I'm saying, talking about. So I don't know, maybe tell us more about that. And A panel that I really loved, again, memory, details, food. There is a panel, I think in the first chapter or the second one, where the character is eating corn and there's corn stuck in her teeth. And I really related. I laughed so much when I saw this panel, because when I was reading this, I kind of felt corn in my teeth, because I remember this as a kid, and it was so funny because, like, you know, you have to deal with a mouthful of corn in your mouth after you eat it. So yeah, maybe tell us more about.
Yeah, so I think that in journalism, it's the more specific that you are, the more universal it is, because people can see, people didn't grow up eating dora, which is like roasted corn in the Middle East, but I'm sure they have had memory of eating grilled corn at a barbecue for 4th of July weekend, you know what I mean? And having corn in their teeth. So people could relate to really specific moments. So I never shied away from trying to relate to everyone. I was only trying to tell a really specific story about myself. I think that, sorry, what was your question again? I was getting into the corn.
Yeah, but like me too, I've like kind of got a lot into this.
About my dad and like,
I mean, yeah, I don't know, how did you, I mean, there are a lot of details. How did you decide to talk, I don't know, to put all these details, like, there is no, like, we just read details, but we're also reading a story. Like, so there's no like storytelling, for example, like my book. I mean, there is no, you know, so we understand the story from the details. What was the
I see what you're saying.
Doing that? Yeah.
Oh shoot, I realized we have to, like, I'll keep my answer short so we can leave time for questions and answers from people. But so I guess, like, you know, I have an editor, my book editor, his name is Ben Dela Cruz, and he worked with me on my first book, and we would cycle through memories to like get a point across. So he would say, can you think of a time when you and your dad got into a huge fight and like how you overcame that problem? So I would like basically just like think like, all right, there was a time that me and my dad fought over clothes. Like he thought that everything I was wearing was too short. And then Ben would be like, not powerful enough. What else do you have? Okay, there was a time that I was mad at my dad because he said that I wasn't helping Hala enough at home. And he was like, it's not strong enough. What else do we have? So we'd keep cycling and cycling and cycling through memories. And basically the idea was to find strong enough anecdotes to make points for every kind of growing moment that I was trying to have. So you could there's a million examples you could say like, I missed the ocean. How did you miss the ocean? I missed the ocean. This is this story with my mom is an example of how I missed the ocean. You have a million ways to tell a story. It's just that you're picking the best anecdotes to illustrate your points every time along the way. And that's how I was able to throw away everything else. Like you know, I've had a million fights with my dad. This is the fight with the car in the car was like the best one I could think of that was safe for me to say. My dad approved it, Selma approved it, Dunya approved it, Hala approved it. Like, I didn't want to write anything either that like I love my family so much. I don't want to write anything that will hurt them. So we all approved the story. So not only did it have to be a good example, it had to be a story that everyone wanted to say. So yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't an easy process.
No, yeah. So it's interesting to hear how you like sort of interviewed a lot of people and had like a singular person being the representative of like many different memories. I love that so much. And I would love to try that as an experiment too. Should we open up to Q&A?
Yeah, let's do that.
I wish we had more time to chat. My mom's here. She's Fleur up in the
hello.
Does anybody have any questions?
If you have a question, if you wouldn't mind going into the reactions on Zoom and hitting the raise hand function, that way I can go ahead and ask you all to unmute if you have a question. All right, looks like you are unmuted.
Hello. I had a question about how you build your relationship, I guess, with your editor and whoever else is reading or reviewing your work. How do you build that relationship, or how do you pick the right people to review so that you're telling your story in a way that is authentic and true to you without it being edited away, if that makes sense? Like, how do you make sure that your voice and your story is retained in the way that you want to see it represented?
Do you want to take that one?
I mean, I can talk a bit about that. Yeah, I think I was lucky to have my editor in Arabic was my friend, and he's very close to me, and we kind of did that together. So I think that this is lucky. Like, it was easy for me to deal with that, and I didn't have to go through this maybe problem. I was lucky, and I kind of did it intentionally. I wanted people who know me know about the story to do the editing. Also in English, it was translated to English by Amy Shinyara, which is also my best friend. She's also half American. So I think this also made things a lot easier for me, because we also did the translation kind of like, she would always get back to me and ask me about specific things, like, okay, this is very related to your hometown, or this is very specific to this memory. How are we gonna find, or maybe she would give me some options, like, what do you think is more close to what you're saying? Yeah, I mean, it wasn't maybe an easy process, but I think I was lucky to choose people who know me. And also that I was, for a couple of years before I wrote the book, I was talking a lot about it. So they also kind of know somehow about the story. So yeah. What about you, Malaka?
I think for me, it's about picking an editor. I'm an editor by day. So when you ask an editor for feedback, what is it that you're actually asking them for? Are you just asking them to give you like validation over the whole project? Sometimes I wanted that from, let's say, an Arab American reader. Do you think it's going to embarrass me, or do you think this is going to be fine? So sometimes I wanted that type of feedback. Sometimes I wanted real technical feedback on like the storytelling arcs of each character, and any sense of catharsis or like completion when a person like finished the book. So that's when I brought on my previous editor, Ben De La Cruz, to help me with that part of the project. And you have to choose somebody who you really trust and can explain to you why they would make a change. You can't just have somebody say, well, I don't like it. You don't like it because what? Well, you want an editor to say, well, I don't like it because you already introduced that theme on page 12. And so if you're going to introduce it again on page 46, you need to provide a different point to it, or shed some new light on it. Or they're going to say, well, you don't want somebody to say, well, this character isn't believable. Your dad's character is not believable. Why? Your dad's character is not believable because you and him don't have enough tension. So you need to add more tension into the relationship there. So you want somebody who can be specific and not just end it there. Say, well, if I ask it my editor, well, how do I add tension with me and my dad? Well, you can add in a few fight scenes in the third act of your book. So that's the kind of like specific, expert, technical feedback that you want to be looking for when you're looking for an editor. And so I drew a comic about this. I put it in the chat of like how to handle criticism, but also how to look for criticism, like how to reject and accept criticism from an editor. Criticism isn't bad. Criticism is about what it means to be edited by somebody who is an expert, who can take your book from a rough diamond to a polished diamond. That's what you want an editor to do. Editors are your friends. And let me tell you, I used a lot of my advance money for my book to pay for editors because I needed them to create a good product. I hired a sensitivity editor, somebody who was Egyptian American, who spoke fluent Arabic, who grew up spending her own summers in Egypt as well, to help fact check my memories. So she would say, well, the cost of tomatoes in 1997 would not be 7 guinea for a pound. It would have been 4 guinea for a pound. and it wouldn't have been a pound, it would have been a kilo. And the reason why it was 4 guinea was because there was an inflation during that time. Whatever. You want somebody who has that expertise that you're paying for, who can, if you're writing a memoir, it has to be written in reality, right? You know, Rawand can't be making stuff up about Lebanon's, you know, economic crisis or post-war feelings. You know, it has to all be rooted in fact. So editors, they're great. Choose someone you trust and you'll be very good.
All right, next up we have Ron.
Hi, everybody. Can you guys hear me? So it looks like I might be the only guy here, but I found, Malaka, I found your book because I found you through Instagram, where the algorithm brought us together. I was, you know, kind of dating this Egyptian woman. I'm a Filipino guy. I was dating this Egyptian woman maybe 6 months ago. And the way it happened was, you know, boom, I was invited to these lunches and dinners randomly. And I was like, what's going on? And for some reason, I was always sat in front of her. And then I got it after a while, like it kind of clicked, right? But one day she brought me to her family. We had dinner and I didn't realize this was like, oh, okay, you're going to propose or what? So I wanted to ask you if you can you kind of made a table about it in your book, which I really appreciated, actually. You know, you had columns: Filipino communication, Egyptian communication, and expectations. You know, can you expound on that, you know, and more so the best way to communicate between two families that are different? And I do want to say I did grow up around a lot of Arab Americans. I have a lot of Egyptian friends, Lebanese friends, Syrian friends. I'm in a very diverse city, and you will never know, actually, when you invite somebody into your house, you're like a diplomat, you know, and I've had nothing but very good experiences with the hospitality that I've experienced in Arab homes. And now, you know, I have dates and nuts in my house. You know, I kind of adapted it into my own home because I loved it so much. But can you expound on, you know, that table that you made and what would foster good communication between two so different yet, you know, similar, you know, backgrounds?
Wow. Thank you. Hello, Ron, and nice to meet you. I think you're referring to my previous book, which is I Was the American Dream. I'll answer that quickly. It's a great question. Cool background. I love that you are around so many diverse people. That's a real blessing in the United States to be growing up in a place that's so diverse. My mom's here. She could probably answer the question on what it's like to be married to an Arab. There's my mom's hand. But she'll give you a really long answer, so I'll just cut it short for you. I think the best way to be in an interracial relationship, especially with somebody from an Arab background. This is coaching that I always do with Darren, my husband, who's white. So I do a lot of coaching with him on how he should act in a Filipino home versus an Arab home. So in a Filipino home, for example, like the partner of my partner should be able to, you know, offer to wash the dishes after a meal is done. That is seen as extremely polite. Never say no to food if it's being offered to you, because Filipinos specifically love to see you eat a lot. And it's kind of seen as rude to say no when offered things. In an Arab home, for example, I would tell my husband, an Arab Muslim home specifically, I'd be like, do not hang out with the women after the meal is over. Like, just go, or just if like women are hanging out with women and men are hanging out with men, I know you don't know anybody, but you need to not hang out with us. So like, do not sit next to me, go hang out with the men. Please don't do that. So I give him different coaching tips based on the different cultures. So I think the best way to deal with be in an interracial relationship is, especially with somebody who's Arab or somebody who's Filipino or whatever, is to just like have a lot of conversations about what the social norms are, and never push back and say, well, like in my culture, we don't do that. That's wrong. The better conversation to have is like, oh, so I see that is a norm in your culture. Why is that? That's so interesting. And I will try to abide by that social norm. I hope that answers your question.
That did. And, you know, I think that feedback and kind of translating how the norms are is important. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I laughed. Maybe I cried. Maybe I wouldn't have been that in person. But I really appreciate your writing.
All right. Looks like up next we have Andrea.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the both of you, Rawand and Malaka, for your presentation. And as a reader, I'm really fascinated by this aspect of personal memoir. And I think it's whenever it comes to these personal details, as you were talking about, it's you're sharing with your public a lot, and I appreciate that. And I'm interested in this aspect of the interconnectedness between the personal memoir and the collective memory. As you also mentioned before, especially that there is this life trajectory, but at the same time the changes that come with economic and political change and also environmental change. So I don't know, maybe you can share a little bit about that, whether you have had some responses also coming from your readers and people who relate to this. If you can share something.
Thank you for this question. I think like one of the best things that happened is that a lot of people from different countries kind of connected with that, which was like when I first wanted to publish the book, I was really scared about, like, I wrote the story about a small town in Lebanon, but my publisher is Egyptian, and I was really scared about that. Like, okay, it's gonna be in Egypt more than Lebanon, maybe, and I was very scared. Like, how would the Egyptian, for example, audience interact with that, or how they would be connected? Why is that important for them? But from the start, even when the publishers read the comic, they were really connected with it, because this issue of privatization of the beach is happening everywhere, and maybe not only in the area, but also the whole world. And they also started to talk about that, about how they are losing a lot from their daily life, from their memories. I also heard stories from, I don't know, like which people connected to it in the Arab world. And like, for example, right now I'm in Istanbul. Even in Istanbul, when I say, or like I talk about my book, people can say, oh, this is happening to us too. And we start directly talking about how this affected us. So this is kind of something that has been happening in the past 10 years and is still happening. So I think this is what creates or makes this very personal story universal or important to so many different people. And yes, it is a memoir or a documentation of specific people who live in a small town in Lebanon, which maybe you cannot spot on the map because it's so tiny. But I think what I was trying to do with this book is that these memories that they have, or this experience that they had to deal with, this change that is kind of forced on them, is very important to like the whole idea of privatization. So it's not just a political case that we need to deal with it like with laws, and I don't know, it's also affecting a lot people's life, a lot, changing their identity, maybe leading them to even leave the place. People are being displaced, people are losing their sense of belonging. These stuff are also very important and also political, and has to be talked about when we're talking about like big cases like privatization. So I think this what makes this personal story relatable for so many people.
I think Rawand said it best.
So I'm going to come in with a question now. So you guys both talked a lot about how you went back through the process of mining your memories and going through your memories and talking with your family members and interviewing with them in order to put these stories together. Throughout that process of going back through all these memories and experiences, was there anything unexpected that you learned or realized about those memories or those experiences about yourself or what you went through? Or how did anything change in terms of your outlook on those memories from the beginning to the end of the process?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that question. It's a good question. I hadn't talked to my stepmother in maybe more than a decade before doing this book. This book is, spoiler alert, it's about entering a new family, creating a family dynamic. And before I realized it, as I came of age and became an adult, my father and my stepmother's marriage dissolved. So from the age of 23 to 37, I basically did not talk to my stepmother much. I had formed a fantastic bond with her as a child, and then I had to sort of, out of respect for my dad, sort of keep a cool sort of distance and with her. And I think the most surprising aspect of writing this book was that I assumed that my stepmother and my dad would not want to revisit their divorce and work with me on this book. And that was my first. That was a stereotype that I had put upon them. That I assumed that in the Arab family home environment, it's very private. In Egyptian culture, families, divorce, it's a very private affair that happens within the home. I did not think that they would want to talk about that publicly or allow me to talk about that publicly. And to my surprise, that they were supportive, but not only supportive, willing to speak to each other cordially and speak to me about very intimate details of their relationship, that they were willing to put out to the public in a book and let me tell the story in my own way. And I felt like it was a stereotype because my dad was sort of like, why did you think that that I would not let you do your art? Did you think that because, like I'm an Arab man and in Arab society that I would not let my daughter do this? And I said, yeah, kind of. I didn't think that you would want to let me do that. But also it was a testament to how much my stepmother and my dad believed in me. And it was a shock to me, to my own thoughts and feelings about Arab people, Arab society, that they would allow me to do that. So it was a very, very special process. We worked together for 2 years. Hala doesn't speak Arabic. So I had to deploy my brother I paid him $25 a chapter to basically interface with me and Hala and translate questions that I had for her, feedback that she had on my illustrations, feedback that I had on her feedback, and like that, kaza, 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 as we'd say in Arabic, and until the book was finished. And that was a lot of effort and work. Some of the criticism of my book is that the book's very safe, doesn't explore deeply into certain topics. I could have probed more, but honestly, it's my memoir and my control of how much I do want to say and not say about my family. And for me, my family is more important than my art. And so hurting them and putting them out there on blast is not exactly the thing that I want to do, especially when they work with me so closely. Rawand, I'd love to hear your answer.
I mean, the last sentence you said, yeah, of course, I had to deal with that also. There were a lot to say about, especially my family's memories. And in a tiny chapter, I talk about a little bit about the relationship between the mother and the character. And I mean, yeah, just when it comes to, even though I do not, and it's hard to write things when it comes to memories related to your family. You also want, yeah, of course you need to be very considerate to their own, because even if you write the story and not mention exactly who the character is, it's still their own story and memory that you're talking about. You don't want to, like, I don't know, use things that people don't like to be in public. But what I try to do is, for example, my sister especially would tell me stuff and like, okay, maybe I can't write this story, but I know the feeling. So I try to maybe show it somehow without saying the story, especially like in the first chapter, the frustration she felt also when she had to leave, that she felt that she's completely defeated and there's nothing to do. Like, she told me a lot of details that I maybe didn't want to put, like to also respect her own story, but also about like mining and what I learned from it, which also, like, when I imagined how am I gonna do the book when I first started writing it, it's completely different on what it became. It was much more personal when I started, and it ended up being the book that documents a collective memory. And I realized how much there's an age gap between me and my sister. She's 11 years older than me. So growing up, there was this gap between us. And when I was interviewing her for this and like asking her about her memories as a child, I realized how much we're like, oh my God, we have a lot in common. And I didn't have the chance to meet her as a kid, but like we share a lot of the same memories, the same pain, the same change. And I don't know, maybe this is why I wanted, because at this moment, it felt that it's not that my own personal story is not important anymore, but the stories that I took from the people maybe they're not always my own, but they do talk about me, on my identity. Who am I? The hometown that I come from, the background. What does it mean to be the kid of a farmer who comes from a small town in a world that is, I don't know, is not safe to live in anymore. So yeah, I mean, thanks for the question, Aya.
No, for sure. That's so interesting. The way you thought it was going to be one thing and then it just turned into something else. I think those are all the questions we had from everyone. And so this conversation was so great. It's going to be on YouTube after this, so people can revisit it and watch it if they weren't able to join us live. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and for the questions. Thank you so much to Rawand and Malaka for the really insightful and interesting conversation. I feel like these are things that you could, discuss forever, but it's so interesting to kind of read the work and reflect on it and think about all these things. I'm just putting the link to the event link back in the chat. You can find the links to purchase both books on that webpage. And yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. I just would like to point out that my mom is cleaning her closet on video. Mommy.
Hi, Malaka's mom.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.